Hello, this is Easter Monday, April 13th, 2020. Today, we are going to discuss what is going on with coronavirus and also think about who do you say that I am? If you remember Jesus asking Peter. So we'll think about Jesus since it is Easter Monday. And I think you'll find this program interesting and informative, something that will enrich your life. Today, in the last 24 hours, we see that there were 1,531 deaths. So it seems like Easter marked a reduction of 500. So last week during Holy Week, 2,000 people were dying per day. But on Easter Sunday, the day that Jesus rose from the dead, the death rate, the daily death toll, went to around 1,500. Today is Easter Monday, and it seems like it's holding at around 1,500, which is good news because it's 500 less people dying per day. So yesterday, April 12, 2020, there were 22,073 deaths total in the United States. It rose by 1,531. And so today, the total death toll in America stands at 23,604. And that's a size of a large state university. So it is disturbing. But hopefully the number of deaths will continue to decrease. Confirmed cases are rising around 30,000 per day, and that's holding around that rate. So yesterday there were a total of 556,044 cases. It rose by a little bit over 30,000. Actually, it's not actually over 30,000. It's a little bit less than 30,000. And so now the number on April 13th, 2020 is at 581,679. Today we're going to look at Latin America. Some of you may have been wondering about that, and we're asking yourself, when will Heerak go and discuss Latin America? And so today we're going to discuss Latin America. As you know, I'm running for general elections for the position of U.S. Representative or U.S. Congressman in Virginia's 8th District, which is Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, and parts of Fairfax County in Northern Virginia, right next to Washington, D.C. And there are a lot of Latinos living in Arlington, especially, but also in Alexandria and Falls Church and parts of Fairfax County. And when we look at the demographics of 8th District in Virginia, it's predominantly white American, predominantly wealthy, a lot of people making over $100,000 per household. That's the majority, or the greatest block are people who make over 100,000 among the voters. But we have large number of immigrants as well. There are tremendous number of nationalities represented in Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, and parts of Fairfax County. And in the future, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that. But there are a lot of Latinos, a lot of Arabic peoples, a lot of Ethiopians in Arlington area. So in terms of cuisine, it's great because you could have all these ethnic foods. So especially during COVID-19, you can kind of patronize these ethnic restaurants, take food home, have it with you. You could just go through all different types of ethnic food, Ethiopian food, Brazilian food, Peruvian food, Ecuadorian food, Chilean food, Mexican food, you know, Arabic food, and different types of Arabic food, Tunisian food, Moroccan food. So you're confined to your house anyway, and it's a nice way to help your local businesses out. So patronize your local restaurants and try different ethnic foods out with your children and family. It's a good way to socialize, kind of break the mundane monotony of every day while you're confined at your home. And it will give you topics to discuss, and you can share these culinary experiences together. It's kind of like eating out with your children, but it's better because you're eating in and there isn't the distraction. You can just kind of talk about food, go around and have your children talk about food. So be creative. Obviously, subscribe to this YouTube channel because I give you good ideas, right? You're stuck with your children and you should be happy, but some parents are not very happy. But because you're parents, you have the duty to educate them and obviously bring them up in the ways of the Lord and Bible and morality, but also give them some happy memories that they can share with their future wife and children, your grandchildren. They could say, oh, you know, COVID-19 was horrible, but I remember my dad and my mom, they brought us all these ethnic foods. I mean, there's like over 100 nationalities represented in the Virginia's 8th district, Northern Virginia. And we tried all 100 different types of food from 100 different countries, you know, Korean, Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese, Cambodian, Indian, Pakistani. You know, I mean, you could try all these foods. And so your children can talk about United Nations experience that they had in a culinary way. And it will be something that they will be able to remember the rest of their lives. So I would actually encourage everybody in Virginia's 8th district to do that because, you know, you have money. Majority of families in Virginia's 8th district are very wealthy. So it's not like you're hurting for money. And so, you know, just spend some money. Maybe every dinner you could try something new. You know, you can get a recipe from the internet and try to cook some of these ethnic foods. It's more work. So you know, you may not want to do that every day, maybe once a week. Other days, you could just bring food from your local ethnic restaurants, you know, Chinese food, Korean food. And there's so many different dishes among Korean food. I mean, you could probably, for 100 days of different dishes every night, you know, utilizing different Korean restaurants in the area. So, you know, I first start with like, you know, Korean restaurant, Chinese restaurant, but if you find the cuisine you like, you could try different dishes, you know, and on for one dinner, you could have 5 different dishes you could share and kind of talk about it. You know, you could Google, internet, and learn about the food. You know, you can have exercises where you can have children write essays, maybe a 1-page essay about their dinner experience. As you know, I'm a teacher. I'm licensed in the state of Virginia and Washington, D.C., South Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama in all subjects, English, math, science, history, ESL, and special education, and reading specialist. So I have all these great ideas. So I'm going to share with you. So subscribe to my YouTube channel, check back every day for good ideas. So you want your children to improve in reading and writing and critical thinking, and also verbal expression, written expression, because verbal expression is different from written expression. So every night you could try a different food and have your children write maybe 1-page essay on their experience of eating a particular ethnic food. And then you could go around the table sharing what your children have written. And they could be all different age groups, right? 5, 10, 15, doesn't matter. They could write something, 1 page or 2 pages, share. They could write in a narrative format. They could write a little kind of a story about how the family ate, you know, so there could be dialogue, you know, they could kind of caricature the scene that they had with their, you know, you could kind of be creative, you know. And so, or you could have one night where you can have children writing about how they felt eating the food. Or you could also write about how their friends may enjoy eating that food. And so, you know, you could give a different theme every night. And if you were like really good parents, diligent parents, and you plan this thing out, you could say, well, tomorrow we're going to have Korean food. So you and your wife can discuss, kind of powwow. And then in the morning, you could give your children like an assignment, but like an easy assignment. Say, you could say, you could pick out like 5 different cities if you have 5 children. Uh, and then you could say each one of you, Google and research this city and make a 3 or 5 minute presentation before dinner. And then, so you have your children kind of present, for about 20, 30 minutes, different cities in Korea, and then you bring Korean food. And then you eat Korean food, and then after dinner, you have children write like a 1-page essay on their experience. So you're developing their critical thinking, verbal expression, written expression, and so you can be good parents during COVID-19. You can maximize this opportunity, right? Opportunity can be utilized or opportunity can be lost. And some of you have been so busy at work before COVID-19, you haven't really been good parents. Let's face it, a lot of parents are not good parents. They don't really do anything with their children in terms of education or helping them grow intellectually. And giving a book to your child is good, but that doesn't really develop their brain as much. I mean, because they read on their own. Yes, that helps, but you can actually play an active role in developing their brain by these kind of exercises. So check back every day for good ideas that I'm going to give you, parents in Virginia's 8th District, and obviously others from all over the country who's watching this program can get these ideas and utilize them as well. So maybe you can make, this week Latin American week and go through different foods, Latin American foods. Tomorrow you could have Brazilian food. Day after that you could have Peruvian food. Day after that you could have Ecuadorian food. Day after that you could have Chilean food. Day after that you could have Mexican food. Mexican food you probably tried already, but you could try a different dish. So yeah, be creative, utilize this time, and don't be lazy as parents because you want to be good parents. You want your kids to remember you positively, right, when they grow up. And after 18, they'll probably leave your home. They'll marry somebody and have children and family of their own, right? Hopefully, you don't want to be having like a bunch of spinsters, right, among your children. You want your children to have happy families. So, but anyway, yeah. So going back to Latin America, number 1 in Latin in terms of COVID-19 cases is Brazil. They have 23,430 cases, and the total number of deaths are at 1,328. Peru is number 2 and 9,784 cases, and they only have 216 deaths. I say only because just compare the numbers from the United States. I mean, just these numbers are minuscule. I mean, Brazil, they're over 1,000, so it's quite a bit, but Peru, it's relatively small. Ecuador has 7,529 cases, they're number 3, and they have 355 deaths. In the news, they talk about how Ecuador has problem burying all the dead bodies. So sometimes you kind of may be thinking like, how efficient are these countries? Because 355 deaths, it's a lot, but I mean, it's not like the number of deaths we have, and they're struggling to bury them. So, different countries have different levels of efficiency, and we kind of see that when we compare with Chile, which is number 4. They have 7,525 cases, which is about similar in terms of how many cases Ecuador has. But look at the deaths. It's less than 4 times Ecuador's death. Chile has 82 deaths, and Ecuador has 355 deaths. So something is not going right in Ecuador. So government of Ecuador needs to do some searching, maybe learn from Chile to improve, because not all countries are created equal, right? Some have higher number of deaths, some have lower number of deaths. If you have a lot of death, there's a serious problem. There's something going wrong that's either wrong with the government policies, or there's something wrong with the social behavior of the populace, or maybe the immune system is low because maybe your citizens are doping a lot in marijuana. My position on marijuana, it should be illegalized. Marijuana slows your brain down, and it impairs your judgment, and it impairs your driving. And in Colorado, they said number of accidents went up after they legalized marijuana. So I'm a strong proponent of illegalizing marijuana. It's not good for your brain. It's not good socially. It's not good for the future of the children. It's not good for the future of America. Anything that impairs your judgment like that is not good, you know. And so, and when we go back to the list, Mexico is at 5th place at 4,661, and they have 2,906 deaths. So maybe Mexico should learn from Chile as well. The cases are much lower than Chile, but look at the number of deaths. So something's not going right in Mexico when you do the comparison. But who are we to speak? Because look at America. I mean, geez, we have like 1,531 deaths per day. I mean, just China, the total number of deaths in China from November to now is, you know, not even 5 times what we have in terms of daily deaths. Not even 4 times, you know. And so China is doing something right if we just kind of do nation to nation comparison. And, you know, we're doing something wrong. I mean, Dr. Fauci has a point, you know. On Sunday, he was on the State of the Union in CNN. He talked about how countries which have same ethnic group kind of are a little bit more efficient than countries with a lot of different ethnic groups, because they can act kind of in unity much more easily because they're one ethnic group. And, you know, I come from Korea, and Korea is basically 100% ethnically Korean. So it's kind of like an extended family, you know, because everybody is Korean, and they've shared the history for 5,000 years. So they kind of think alike in a way, and, you know, they share the culture. You know, a lot of things are, you don't have to speak it or explain it. People understand, you know. It's kind of like groupthink. It's culture, you know. You identify with people who are part of your culture. And that's probably with the same way with people who are Brazilian, Peruvian, Ecuadorian, Chilean, and Mexican. There are certain things that unify them, right? And that may be the reason why we don't have that many cases and death in these countries, because, you know, there's an ethnic homogeneity. Maybe Dr. Fauci is right in pointing that out. I haven't really thought about that before until I saw the show State of the Union on CNN with Dr. Fauci. But I think he may have a point. You know, he's Italian American, and Italian communities tend to be very ethnically homogeneous in America. But, you know, just talking about Italy, maybe that's not necessarily true either, because Italy is ethnically, I mean, it's hard to say. You know, the problem with Europe is this, right? There have been a lot of racial mixture in Europe. It's a little bit different. Like Korea has been homogeneous racially and ethnically for about 5,000 years. Meaning for 5,000 years, Korean people just married each other, basically. Same with Chinese people, same with Japanese people. There wasn't really that much movement. Korea was colonized for 35 years by Japan from 1910 to 1945. But there wasn't that many intermarriages between Koreans and Japanese. And so ethnically and racially, there's homogeneity. China's the same, Japan's the same, and the cases are fairly low. And Brazil, Peru, Ecuador, Chile, and Mexico, it's ethnically fairly homogeneous, except for Brazil. Because like Brazil has a lot of influx of different races coming into Brazil. You have like Gisela Bündchen, who's a Brazilian model, very beautiful. She's, I think, of German descent. And I remember my best friend, Ed Mosang, you know, we're best friends since high school or middle school at Fairfax Christian Academy. He worked for Henkel Corporation, which is a German company. And he was telling me Henkel Brazil is big, and a lot of Henkel executives in Brazil who are Brazilian are kind of German descent. So Like Brazil may have a higher number because they have influx of other races there, which is not really the case in countries like Peru, Ecuador, Chile, and Mexico. They're racially kind of homogeneous. Yes, there were European invaders who went in, mostly Spaniards, but their racial mixture is basically the native population with like Spanish blood, right? So it's two races getting mixed, and they kind of developed as a singular race since the time of like Christopher Columbus and the Spanish conquest of that area. So they've kind of shared history, and their culture is kind of shared and common throughout. Um, Italy is a little bit different. If you study the history of Europe, it's not just Italy, all over Europe. Except for Germans, they kind of emphasize racial purity throughout their period, and we see that that COVID cases are kind of low in Germany. Because Germanic tribes were very unified, even during the Roman Empire, during the time of Jesus. The Roman Empire had really hard time conquering Germanic tribes because they were so particular, they were so ethnocentric, and they didn't want to be dominated. And Germans just married Germans generally, and they kind of stuck together with Germans. So there's an ethnic unity, and there's homogeneity in terms of culture and identity that is distinctive in Germany and Scandinavia as well. You see the COVID cases are not very high in Scandinavia because these are the Vikings, right? And they kind of are particular. They have this groupthink. When I was in Israel, my friends and I, we used to go down to Eilat, which is in the south of Israel, and it's like a resort area. They have a really good snorkeling and scuba diving, one of the best marine life in the Red Sea, where Egypt and Israel intersect. And Scandinavians would fly over during Christmas time. They don't even come to Jerusalem. They just fly directly from like Scandinavia to Eilat because the winters are very dark. And certain areas in Norway, could get completely dark the whole winter because it's so north. So they'll fly over and they, enjoy themselves. And you can see Scandinavians just kind of sticking with themselves, just having fun by themselves. Very unified people, very different from other kind of like Americans. We kind of like, mix or make, we kind of spread out, and so, we see that, countries that are kind of racially homogeneous, ethnically homogeneous tend to be, have fewer cases. And so, when Dr. Fauci raised that question, it's interesting because, even Italy, where the biggest outbreak is, northern Italy, that's where the greatest racial mixture is. Because in northern Italy, you have like a mixture of different Europeans intermarrying. In southern Italy, not so much. Like you go to Sicily, it's more homogeneous. In northern Italy, there's a lot of mixture with other European countries. And so that's where the biggest outbreak is. So maybe that Dr. Fauci has a point, not just in terms of cultural differences and language barriers playing a role, but maybe there's a genetic component to it. I know people don't like to talk about it, but there are diseases that are for particular races, right? Like there are illnesses that attack like just Ashkenazi Jews. A large number of Ashkenazi Jews have particular disease, so they're ethnic specific diseases, the scientists are doing some research on that, and sickle cell disease can also be more race specific, some scientists would say. So there are exceptions to the rule, but exceptions prove the rule because exceptions are so few. And so maybe COVID-19 should be studied from that angle as well. It's just a thought, this is a suggestion to you scientists out there who are doing research into COVID. Maybe you should do some experiments on COVID's impact on people who are racially more mixed. So the way you'd go about doing that is a lot of people in Africa are not mixed. A lot of people in Asia are not mixed racially. You have a lot of Germans who are racially not mixed. Scandinavian racially not mixed. So you can kind of do a genetic study. And, it sounds almost racist, but, that's the political correctness brainwashing that raises the flags, red flags, right? But if we're going to treat the COVID-19 effectively, we have to understand what's going on. As you know, United States have the most racially diverse people in the world, like mixture of all different kinds of races. I remember Chuck Norris telling me, telling people that he has Cherokee blood. And I'm like, this white guy, I look at him, he's like, white guy, he's like, he has Cherokee blood. He's like, Cherokee? But even Elizabeth Warren says she has like Indian blood, doesn't she? So President Trump calls her Pocahontas. Apparently people who look racially white, some of them have like Indian blood, and some of them have African blood, like some of the slave owners raped the African slaves. Like I understand Thomas Jefferson, whose birthday we're celebrating, I think raped some of the slaves or fell in love and had sex with some of the slave women. Very, very gray zone there. You should just have sex with your wife, right? But anyway, yeah. But so, that raises the question, I didn't really think about this before, but now that this train of thinking is continuing, maybe that's why there are so many deaths in America. If COVID-19 makes a greater impact on individuals who have racial mixture, that would explain why there are so many people in America dying. Do you see what I mean? Because there are a lot of people in America who are not ethnically homogeneous, So maybe, one study you can do is, a lot of Irish Americans are racially like Irish, like they don't have that much racial mixture. So maybe you could kind of study Irish communities where you have like a lot of, Irish people who haven't married outside of the Irish like ethnic group, and then study how many of them are getting COVID and how many of them will get COVID die. Compare that to another community, which is not as racially kind of or ethnically homogenous. Just pick your run-of-the-mill Protestant community. Then there you have it, right? Because a lot of Protestants, they just kind of marry. Well, it depends. I mean, if you go to like Minnesota, you have ethnic groups that are kind of Germanic, kind of Scandinavian Germanic, that kind of keep to themselves, and there's that kind of ethnic identity there. And Idaho, I understand, is a little bit like that as well. So even in terms of 50 states, you could kind of do a study, like states like Minnesota, which are more, especially among the white populations, there isn't that much of a ethnic mixture. Compare that to areas where there's more ethnic mixture. And obviously, New York State has a lot of ethnic mixture. I mean, New York City is probably a place where racial mixture occurs the most, right? So if we just want to understand how COVID-19 impacts people, right? Because we want to save lives. So in order to save lives, I don't think any question should be beyond asking, because if we can find out that having different racial mixture makes you vulnerable, and we understand that to be the reality with COVID-19, we can find a solution to treat that because we know what the problem is. But if we don't take ethnic identity and racial identity into the mix, then you can't treat it because you're not targeting what needs to be treated, right? At the genetic level, if you want to find a cure for a virus that attacks genetic mixture, and racial purity kind of has higher immunity, then it will be easier for you to develop the treatment to prevent people with many racial mixtures from dying, right? So it's science, right? Because you can sequence DNA, you could sequence cures. So that would explain why so many people in New York are dying. Because there's a lot of racial mixture going on in New York, and it has been going on for a long time because Ellis Island is where a lot of different races go and they mingle. So if you look at the number of deaths in New York, it's significantly higher than the rest of the country, and that may be the reason why. And even among the African American populations, there are people who have, more like Milano, like white skin African Americans and dark skin African American. So if you're racially more pure Black African American, you have less chance of getting COVID and less chance of dying from COVID compared to African Americans who have lighter skin, who have more racial mixture. So these are studies you can do. Obviously, you're doing these studies in order to save people's lives. So because so many people are dying, especially in areas like Wayne, city of Wayne, which is like now third place in terms of number of deaths, these studies may be important in saving lives, and we don't know when COVID-19 will stop. So obviously, we have to ask the questions that's going to help us save lives. And political correctness have to be kicked out of the window because you want people to die with political correctness, or do you want to save lives asking the right questions, coming up with the right treatment and right cure? And so, ideas can bring about salvation, right? Or cures. And so I would encourage all the scientists out there watching this show to start investigating a relationship between race and COVID in terms of how many people get infected. Are you more vulnerable to infection if you have racial diversity in your genetic makeup through intermarriage? And that would apply also between Southern Europeans and Northern Europeans, right? Like Italian who marries German. They say some of the most beautiful women are that combination, right? Italian and Irish, or Italian and German. I don't know. I mean, that's what they say. I haven't done an empirical study or experiment to confirm that, but so that would be a racial mixture as well, like Italian marrying a German because they're different race. They're white, but they're different race, right? In terms of genetic makeup. So I would encourage scientists to experiment or kind of do an observational study, maybe cohort study, prospective cohort study, or retrospective cohort study to see, because if COVID continues into second wave, third wave, we could go into number of deaths being in the millions. It could even go into hundreds of millions, right? 2-3 years from now, if there's no cure, no vaccine. Now, if you're looking at the wrong places because you want to be politically correct, so you don't do the race study, then you may not figure out the cure. And maybe it is the case that people with mixed blood are the ones who die. I mean, see, that explains a lot, because think about it. South Korea, which started the outbreak around the same time as United States, I think a little bit earlier, they only had 9 cases today. I mean, their infection control is probably good, but not that superior to America. For God's sake, United States has the best medical system in the whole world. No other country compares to the medical system in America. Infection control, America has the best. I mean, no country comes even close to America's infection control. So it's definitely not America's medical system. That's the reason why infections are spreading like wildfire in America compared to other countries. I mean, there are problems with infection control in America, but that's a problem that every country has. So why is it that we have all these cases, 1,500 people dying every day, whereas China's total number of deaths is under 4,000? China has racial purity, right? They're ethnic Chinese. For 5,000 years, Chinese only marry Chinese. And so if COVID-19 attacks genetic diversity, then it makes sense why Americans are dying in large numbers. Obviously, if this is a virus created in a lab as a biological weapon, it's ingenious. You know, like if it were created by Chinese, it's ingenious, because if you create a virus that attacks racial diversity, right? China is immune because it's racially homogeneous, right? So even if it's, you know, I mean, if it's genetically made in a lab to target genetical diversity, and that can scientifically be done, if you have the advances in technology, it could be done. Anything can be done with genetic research. It's just we may not have the technology to do it, but Chinese may. But that would be a very ingenious weapon, because European countries, many of the European countries, and definitely United States is racially diverse. A lot of intermarriage, ethnic mixture with Indians and whites, you know, different types of white races, you know, Southern Europeans and Northern Europeans. There's a lot of racial mixture. So that kind of virus would wipe out if it's targeting genetic diversity in an individual. It would destroy American population, whereas it would not destroy a homogeneous population like China or Korea or Kenya or Sierra Leone. You know, so that kind of biological weapon can be developed if you have the technology, obviously. And so so that's something I think scientists should investigate, just because it is really strange that there's so many Americans are getting COVID and so many Americans are dying from COVID. It's not natural, I would argue, because it's not happening in Asia, you know, China, Japan, Korea. It's not even happening in India, you know, which is 1 billion people, but India is homogeneous as well, racially, really, right? Most of India is racially homogeneous. So if this COVID virus does not, that, you know, you know, there are outliers, right? There are exceptions to the rule, but that proves the rule. But, you know, Iran has had a lot of racial mixture, right? I mean, if you study the history of Iran, you have the Persian Empire, you have the Babylonian Empire kind of mixing with there. So that would explain why Iran would have high death numbers as well, because it has been a place with a lot of racial mixture, whereas Arabs have been mostly homogeneous, like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. So that would explain why the death numbers are low among the Arabs. Now, the Jewish population, as you know, a lot of Jews have intermarried. You know, President Trump's daughter, Ivanka Trump, converted to Judaism and married, what's his name? You know, her husband. So, you know, but that's been going on for more than 2,000 years. I remember, you know, I studied Jewish studies at Harvard with Professor John Levinson, who's an Orthodox Jew, who's Liz Professor of Jewish Studies. And one of the things he pointed out during our doctoral seminar at Harvard, and some of my colleagues at Harvard are now professors in Jewish Studies at, you know, leading universities throughout America. After they finished their PhD at Harvard, they went into teaching universities. One of the things that Dr. Levinson, John Levinson, pointed out is that there was a lot of conversion among non-Jews at the time of Jesus. And he even went far as to say that the whole region of Galilee were predominantly converts to Judaism. So there are different races who converted to Judaism because they happened to live in the country of Israel, and they converted to Judaism. And you may know people who married Jewish people who converted to Judaism. I think Marilyn Monroe married a Jew and converted to Judaism, didn't she? But anyway, so yes, there was a Jewish race, and I talked about it in a few episodes ago. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they are part of a race that came from the region of Iran and Tehran. They migrated. Abraham migrated from Iran area to land of Canaanites. So, and obviously they tried to keep their racial purity, right? They didn't want to marry Gentiles. So there was racial homogeneity among descendants of Abraham who married other people of their race. So Israelites or Jewish people for long, hundreds of years, thousands of years, tried to keep their race pure. Although we see in the book of Ruth that there was a Gentile who converted to Judaism or ancient Israelite religion and married, and Jesus's and one of the ancestors was the prostitute from Jericho who hid spies, right? Joshua and Caleb, and she was a prostitute, but she was saved because she hid the spies of Israelites, and then she became an ancestor of Jesus. So obviously she was not of the same race. So they're having converts even way back then during the time of Joshua, and these converts married Israelites. So there has been racial mixture within ancient Israelite religion. We know King Solomon had a wife who was African, and so we have like Ethiopian Jews as well, and the history going back thousands of years is kind of murky, but some say that it goes all the way back from time of King Solomon, and so there have been some racial mixture within ancient Israelite religion, but they by and large try their best to keep marrying just Israelites, right, not Gentiles. But around the time of Jesus, the situation was different. They had exile in Babylon hundreds of years before, and they became a colony of Roman Empire, and it was a colony of Roman democracy at the time of Jesus. When Babylonians conquered Jerusalem and destroyed Israel, Israel as a country ceased to exist, and they sent the remnant to Babylon. Some historians say almost up to 80% of Israel's population were killed by the Babylonians, or rest fled and they lost their Jewish identity because they had to flee individually, scattered all over the area. So at the time of Jesus, which was hundreds of years after Babylonian exile, when the exiles came back to Israel, the population was significantly reduced because Babylonians had come and conquered Israel and killed a lot of people. There are different historical accounts, so there's disagreement among historians. But going back to Harvard, Professor John Levinson was saying, large part of Galilee was comprised of converts. We know King Herod, excuse me. We know King Herod was a convert from Idumean. He was an Idumean converted to Judaism. And he was the king at the time of Jesus. And, he tried to kill King Jesus, or Jesus when he was born. Remember the story? Now he was a convert to Judaism. Professor John Levinson said Genesis Apocryphon, which is an ancient Jewish text written by Jews, kind of shows that there was a lot of aggressive conversion going on in the Second Temple period, which is the period after the Jews returned from Babylonian exile, and they rebuilt the temple. And the temple existed until the Romans came in 70 AD and destroyed Jerusalem. killing a lot of Jews again. And then Israel disappeared as a country from 70 AD all the way for almost 2,000 years into the founding of the Jewish state of Israel, which we have now. So anyway, apparently at the time of Jesus, there were a lot of Jews who were converts. And that's part of the reason why a lot of Jews in Jerusalem area were discriminatory toward Galileans. If you remember when Jesus was arrested and Peter was in the courtyard of the temple, people said, "You're with Jesus. You have that accent from Galilee." They were criticized for the accent, but also because of this idea that a lot of Galileans were converts to Judaism, who might have married pure Jews, but purely racially Jews, but so they're converts marrying Jews. So whereas in Jerusalem, the idea was a lot of Jews married Jews, not converts to Judaism. So that there was this kind of discrimination against Galileans because of that. So I thought that was kind of interesting, thing. And so you could kind of do a study of that if you are interested in anthropology or sociology. Obviously, it's a long time ago, so it's mostly textual and archaeology and theoretical model-based historiography is utilized. But that's an interesting thing. But going back now to COVID-19, it's worth a study because if this virus is specifically geared toward attacking and destroying cells that are composite or represent mixture of races genetically, because genetically you could identify racial purity and racial diversity, right? It sounds awful, but it's true. Genetic studies, right? Biological studies, it's there. I mean, you have pure breed dogs, right? Human beings, obviously we're not animals, but from a biological sciences perspective, there is a certain amount of way to study that, So, you have study of living organisms to study, pure breeds and non-pure breeds, right? And you can kind of match that with genetic makeup, DNA sequencing, so that can be done. Yes, it does sound a little bit, but we're trying to save lives, so we need to go to areas which is going to produce cure, right? Treatment that's going to be effective. So we do need to study, are mild cases among Blacks who are purely Black race or purely white race? Are they the ones who are kind of having mild cases? By and large, there could be exceptions to the rule. Or is it, across the board? So obviously you got to do these studies to know, right? If you don't do the studies, you're not going to know. So I think it's worth doing the study, and I would encourage all the scientists out there. And let's not forget, it's Heerak Christian Kim running for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District, who suggested to the scientists to do this genetic makeup study to see if that's a factor in COVID-19 cases, whether the cases are mild or severe, resulting in death. So if my suggestion and ideas results in a cure, give me credit because I gave you the idea. So idea, as I explained, is the currency of 21st century. It's not oil that is the most valued commodity in 21st century, it's information. And I pointed out that's why consulting firms make so much money, and they're not producing anything. They're just giving you ideas. You pay people millions of dollars for ideas that's going to help you, because knowledge is power, information is power. And you're lucky because I'm giving you all this information that can make you powerful, that can help you survive, that could help you come up with cure. So you just check back every day and subscribe to this channel. We're going to go on and we're going to talk a little bit more about things that's going to help you become wise and knowledgeable. And so the question that I'm going to ask, since we're talking about Latin American countries and since Brazil is #1, on the death list, or death list and case list in COVID in Latin America. I thought maybe we should talk a little bit about Brazil. You know, Brazil has this famous statue, Christ the Redeemer, and you see that statue overlooking the city there in Brazil, and that's a very famous scene. I haven't gone to Brazil, so I haven't seen it. I like to travel in Europe and Israel and Middle East, you know, especially Egypt. You know, that's my favorite spot is like Israel, Egypt, Turkey, Europe. That's like my favorite area. And you know, my all-time favorite place to vacation is Spain in Mallorca, Palma de Mallorca. I love that place. But you know what? Some people like going to Latin America. I personally don't. So I haven't really gone to Latin America much. You know, I think I've been to Mexico and that's it, and Caribbean. You know, if I get a chance to go somewhere, I go to Europe or, you know, or like Turkey or Egypt or Israel, you know, that area. Just like around the Mediterranean. That's like my favorite place. But anyway, some people love Latin America, so they go to Brazil or Argentina or different countries. And maybe, you know, if I go to Brazil, maybe I'll fall in love with it. I just haven't given a chance because I fell in love with Europe in the Mediterranean area first. So I'm just kind of going there. But, you know, Brazil has this Christ the Redeemer statue. And they did something, you know, hocus pocus kind of thing, and they made Jesus into a doctor. You see the picture right there. That's like with a stethoscope. So I thought that was kind of cool, you know. So Christ the Redeemer, you know, doctors are saving lives during COVID. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And another, you know, theme with Jesus. So I thought, you know, I'll talk a little bit about titles of Jesus, the theme of Jesus. Jesus is seen in the Bible as performer of miracles. If you read in the Gospels, Jesus walks in the water. You know, obviously like that can't be done. But I mean, people used to say people can't fly, but people fly through their planes, right? So, you know, I mean, miracles can happen. And, you know, you should not doubt that miracles can happen. You know, Jesus walked on water. That's definitely possible. Why not? Why isn't that possible? Because you haven't seen it? Is that why? I mean, people who have never seen people fly never thought flying is possible or going to the moon is possible, right? I mean, it's just you have limitations in knowledge that's preventing you from believing. But that limitation in knowledge prevents you from seeing a whole new world, right? Like if you are dogmatic and say no one can go to the moon, you probably will never develop a spaceship that goes to the moon because you don't have an imagination. So people who are dogmatic and want to just stick with evidence that they can touch, see, you know, feel using their senses, they generally are duds when it comes to creating something new or coming up with good creative ideas because they don't have an imagination, right? You know, when you believe in fantasy, things that could be possible, you may create something that comes close, you know? Yeah, so I'm a big fan of miracles. I believe in them, you know, they happen. And so Jesus walking water, yeah, I definitely think it's possible. I believe that Jesus walked in water, and I believe that it's possible for human beings to walk on water if God gives them the miracle and allows them to do that. So yeah, believe in miracles. You know, life is too short not to believe in, you know, great things like miracles, right? Whether it's miracles on a personal level. If you have cancer, believe that your cancer can be cured by Jesus. I mean, my dad has prayed for people with cancer and their cancer had been healed. Not all of them, but some of them. I mean, you know, and so, you know, did science heal the cancer? There's no cure for cancer, right, per se. Or it was a prayer, or was it combination? You know, doctors don't know. I mean, doctors don't know. Scientists don't know what COVID-19 is. It'll take them like over 10, 15 years to understand a little bit about it. They may never understand, exactly what it is. Yeah. Another miracle that Jesus did is multiplying the fish and the bread, right? So, you know, um, you know, this is like for summer, but I don't know if we're going to be able to see the beach in the summer. The beaches are closed, like Virginia Beach is closed, and I think Myrtle Beach is closed as well. Ocean City's closed. I don't know if the summer we're going to have beaches open. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to use this fish, but yeah. So just to visualize, fish. But another fun fact from the Bible is when Jesus went to Capernaum, they tried to collect taxes from Jesus, right? They wanted 2 drachmas of coins for taxes. Yes, they had IRS back then, and they're going to collect the taxes from you, right? So Jesus, he does miracles. So he's like, well, catch a fish, and out of this fish, you're going to get the coins to pay the temple tax. And so 2 silver coins they came out of the fish. That was a miracle. So to pay taxes, Jesus had two Jesus has a sense of humor, doesn't he? He could have just like created coins out of nowhere, right? He could have just created coins because he could do miracles any way he wants, but he has a sense of humor. He's like telling us, yeah, go catch a fish and then take the coins out of the fish. The disciples probably had a lot of fun fishing. So Jesus was a fun guy, I say, And we talk about Jesus as king, the resurrected Jesus being king, and Jesus is described as King of Kings and Lord of Lords in the Bible. And they say, Handel's Hallelujah chorus is considered the anthem of Christianity. So whenever Handel's Messiah plays, Christians generally stand up because it's considered their anthem. So hopefully you enjoyed today's program on COVID-19. I bring you information about COVID, but I also bring you invaluable information, critical thinking that's going to improve your life. It's going to improve your family life. It's going to improve your relationship with your children. It's going to give you ideas not only to survive COVID, but thrive in the age of COVID and give treasured memories to your children where they will think fondly about you for the rest of their life. Even if you die during this COVID crisis, they will think fondly about you the rest of their life because you have taken advice from Heerak and you have done, like for today, I gave you a suggestion to have United Nations food event every night with your children. Use this opportunity to have fun with your children, give them fond memories. If you can't go to Disneyland, bring Disneyland to you or Epcot Center to you, right? So don't be lazy during this COVID. You may die from this COVID. So make sure you give your children good memories, help your children to be successful in the future. Tell them, say no to drugs. Marijuana will destroy your future. If you're a good parent, you're not gonna say do dope. Geez, for God's sake. This is why I hate the Democrats. They try to destroy the future of children. Legalizing marijuana, that's the quickest way to destroy children's future. Doing drugs has been around for thousands of years in the world, and the story has always been the same. Drug culture kills future generations. Drug culture destroys nations. And that's been the case in every nation where drug proliferated. So legalizing marijuana, that alone, so many things that are wrong with the Democrats, but legalizing marijuana, that's just one serious problem for the future of America, for your children. Geez, you're going to say your children should support legalization of marijuana? What kind of parent are you? This is why I have no respect for the Democratic Party, not just in Virginia, but throughout the country. Anyone who wants to legalize marijuana, there are some fake Republicans wanting to legalize marijuana. They should just go to the Democratic Party. You're not welcome in the Republican Party. I'm running as an independent, but if you see the video at the end, you see why I am running as an independent. Yeah, marijuana legalization is one of the things that is really evil about the Democratic Party. And Republicans who want to legalize marijuana should not be welcomed in the Republican Party because it will ruin America, ruin America's future and children. We should illegalize marijuana. I think that's a very important thing for us to emphasize. Illegalize marijuana. Drugs kill. Drugs destroy your brain. Drugs destroy your future. Drugs destroy society, morality. Drugs are bad. So while you're having COVID-19, make sure you emphasize it and drill it into your children's brain. It doesn't matter if you voted for Democrats in the past. You can change. You can become better. Vote against the Democratic Party. Vote for me on November 3rd, 2020 in general elections. Vote for me. Vote against Tom Beyer. I met him. He's a nice guy, but to be honest with you, I don't know what his position on legalization of marijuana is. Maybe you know better than that. Better than me on that, but hopefully he doesn't support legalization of marijuana. My respect for Don Beyer will drop so much, because I think he's a good guy. It's just I believe I can do a better job than Don Beyer as your representative to make this area better, to help your children be more successful and happier in life, and to improve society and bring morality back to District 8. So visit my website, www.heerakforcongress.com, and vote for me on November 3rd, 2020. I'm a problem solver. I can make this area much, much better, and I could give your children a bright future where they are happy and fulfilled and productive, creating great things and contributing to life and future and the future of America, helping this nation to become great. I hope you enjoyed this show, and I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. So check back, subscribe to my channel, and I hope that your family will be well. And tomorrow, I hope you will follow my advice and have some great exotic ethnic food from Latin America or from Korea. I'm Korean, so I would actually recommend that you go for Korean food. And this Korean food is just amazing. It's great. So I hope that you and your family will be well.